You're listening to the Shit You Can't Make Up podcast, a conversation with friends, hosted by Marisol Sanchez.
Hey, thank you for listening. So it's been about a week, I guess, since I posted something. But what I posted last week was really crap. It was basically a 15-minute podcast about me going to go get laid. And I don't know. I could have probably done a more thorough introspective podcast than that one, but it was fun, and I mean, I did. I've had a really good week. I've had let's see what's happened this week. Well, right from that podcast. So from that podcast, I met a new friend who I enjoy hanging out with. So it's been fun, and it's and other stuff's really good. So that front, everything is kind of 2 thumbs up. I got out of nowhere, this opportunity just landed in my lap for a new job for me. That in what I used to do. I mean, I guess I should probably. I've been a stay-at-home mom, I guess 10 years. But before I was actually in the corporate world, and I was pretty successful. It's, a fact about myself that I always keep forgetting, but I was, and I think I was a good enough employee that people I've worked with remember that. And anyway, as someone just recently told me, I was an ace, and I got a couple contract jobs from that, and it's fitting in perfectly. It's fitting in perfectly with my life right now. It lets me get the foot back into that world. But I can't go all the way in. I can't travel because I'm a mom to 3 kids. So, and the busy season is about to start with, back to school and afternoon activities and science fair and cheerleading and monitoring of screen time. I'm going to miss summer. This was a really, really good summer. This was a great summer, actually. And I have a lot to be grateful for. So yeah, new job, cute new friend. My yoga is, as far as my yoga practice, it's actually, I mean, if I talk about yoga as far as like the whole thing, not just the physical parts of it, that's actually been going really well too. I feel like I've been able to practice a lot of the things that I want to practice in my life, and it's been a good week. The physical, I sort of kind of came back a little bit. I have some inflammation in my shoulders, and that was just it's just something that I have to I just have to give it time to heal and not push myself. And I'm okay with that. And, the practice of yoga is a lot more than the physical asana. So that's even good. My family reunion went great. It's still sort of continuing. I've had family with me for, it seems like a long time now. But I've enjoyed all of it. My nephew, then when my cousins and brothers and nephews, and my kids were all together for the reunion, that was great fun. Then my cousin and his boyfriend is staying with me, and which has been great because my kids are with their dad on their vacation. So, and that's even, even though I do miss my kids and I can't wait to see them, this is always a good week for me to just get my ducks in a row and, do, though I haven't done the closets and the things that I thought that I wanted to try to get done this week. But anyway, I'm not going to beat myself up because I've had a great week. I've a new job, feel like I hung out with some friends, I've connected with my family, I've done, I guess the best way I can put it is I've been the person I want to be, and any day that happens is a good day. Anyway, so that's how my week went. So this podcast, the thing I kind of wanted to talk about in this podcast was fear. I want to talk about fear a little bit. And the reason I kind of settled on this one was what kind of triggered this one was twofold. One was people, things that happened in my life that I kind of want to share with you all. The shit that you can't make up, stuff that happens in my life. I haven't been able to share, as of yet. Maybe down the line it's something I can share, but as of yet I haven't been able to share because the shit that I can't make up is really stuff that's just happening in my life that I'm able to observe, process, and stuff. But anyway, it involves other people. And I mean, if I could tell you how many times, I'm surely it has to be at least close to probably 50 times that I've been asked to not discuss something on the podcast. And there's not that many listeners. Like, I had a really good week. Or Losing My Religion podcast did really well. But again, if one person listens to it, I'm thrilled. If no one listens to it, I'm thrilled. But I've gotten that text or I've gotten that phone conversation, and I have felt, and it's kind of made me not want to do the podcast because I feel like I can't really be authentic and talk about what I want to talk about because of these restrictions. So trying to deal with that, or trying to at least empathize with the characters in my life who asked me not to share these things. Well, I understand a lot of it is their privacy. Though I would never use names. I would give you code names. No one would know it's you. But anyway, their fear of, their shit being shared. I get that just because I apparently have no problem telling everyone my shit. Apparently, it's a skill I have. It's a talent. But they don't want to discuss it, and I'm trying to empathize, but at the same time, it's just like a little bit of a struggle I have going on right now. So I decided to talk about fear. And the second part was I did do a podcast about this a while ago, but it didn't get published for other reasons, and I couldn't. There were some points in it that I just thought, I really would like to share with people because I think I do have something to say about it. And or I've done some serious introspection on, fear, and so I want to talk about it. So the way I thought I'd break it down is tell you my biggest fears and kind of walk through each one. So the first one, I think most people have it is death, and to me, my biggest fear, and I think most hopefully mothers could relate to this, is the fear of the death of a child. And it's just unimaginable. It's just unimaginable. And that one, I've had to, it's kind of, it's confronted me. It's a fear that I have. It starts ticking the moment your child is born. And I mean, the way I described those not even toddler years, but toddler down, like baby years, it was just fear. I mean, aside from, every other emotion a mother has, for me, those years were just fear of just keeping that, little blob alive, because they were so freaking reliant on you for everything. And it was just fear. It was just fear that I would fail. And that they, SIDS and everything was just fear. That's how I marked that time. But yeah, it's something that starts ticking, and, all right, so let's walk it through. So I feel, I think I've shared this in previous podcasts. My brother died when I was 9. My youngest daughter right now is 9. So 9, 10, 11, 12. I would describe it as, and I really try to avoid victimization, but I would say for those years I was a victim of the horrible tragedy of my brother's death. I was one of the victims, because my mother lost her fucking mind. She lost her fucking mind, and that's the realization I've come to in the last 2 years. All that anger and all that negative emotions, and just that story, the dynamic between my mother and I, has always been tied into, I think, those few years. And I'm not saying my mom's an easy character at all, but how I painted her, how I described her to myself, the story I made up to myself about my mother, really is based on those years, 9, 10, 11, 12. And again, this is just me piecing it together, especially in the last 2 years, reconnecting with my family. When you relive your childhood and you kind of realize, oh, you know what, maybe that timeline was a little bit different, or maybe my perspective as a child was colored, and maybe I need to forgive my mom. Maybe I need to forgive her and let it go, because I can't imagine if, I've walked through it. What if this child, God forbid something happened? What if this one? What if this one? And it's something I pray I'll never have to. It's a fear that I pray that will never be realized. And to the mothers, there's mothers that I've known who've lost child. I don't know what do you say to the mother? I mean, this story, this loss of a child, I've seen it so many different varieties. I saw it from my mother's perspective. I saw it from one of my closest friends in high school, died in her early 20s in a horrible accident, and her family, sister, brother, her parents, the loss of a child, like I said, my mother, and people I've known over the years. And there's nothing you can say at the moment. You just, it's just going to fucking suck. It's just going to suck. It's going to, I hope you have faith. I hope you have something to turn to. I know, I feel that this was the point in my mother's life where, she left the Catholic Church and kind of went, I term it the fundamentalist years. She went through a variety of religions, and I was, very young, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and being dragged along to all these, new experiences, new churches. But again, how can I judge her for any of that? How can I? Because I think to get through, for my mother to get out of bed, work, and show up, even if it was just a shadow of a mother figure, but just to show up, just be there, says a lot about her. And I guess, God forbid, if something ever happened to one of my kids, I'd hope to emulate her in one fashion and so much, 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 much better in another. But the one fashion I would want to emulate her is that she got up. She, she lived on. What I would not like to emulate is eventually I would want to move on as peacefully and as happily as possible to live. Not to die myself. And then that, I'm talking about this. It's easy to talk about. Well, actually, it's not easy to talk about, but I say all this. God only knows if the reality of this fear ever happened. I, especially with have had bouts of depression throughout my life. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that I'm very lucky because I have so many people who I know would, be here for me, be looking out for me. So that's me facing my fear of death of a child. So that's that one. I don't actually have much fear about my own death, which is this one's gonna be really fucked up. And not because of Eastern philosophies or, even though there's this thing about, not fearing death, but I can't speak to that. I'm not an expert in that. I've read it, I try to understand it, and it does make sense to me, letting go of the fear of death. But that's not how I got to that. How I got to that is really, I think, because death touched me at a very young age. Because I've seen it with my grandmother, I saw it with my aunts. I saw it, with my dad. And, I've seen it. So I'm not that fear of the unknown, like that fear. In other words, if you haven't been touched by death, the fear of the unknown of it, I don't have that. And then as far as my own personal death, I have to be honest. I've never been suicidal. But I have had moments of such despair and such sadness that I was like, God, it would be okay if I, wasn't alive right now. Luckily, those moments are very fleeting and small, and but I feel things deeply, and so sometimes I think, God, it's just exhausting. It's exhausting to just to be alive sometimes. But then again, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it, and I'm thankful for it, and that's the perspective I have. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm not scared to die. I'm not. Um, that's just. If it happens, it happens. I've thought about it, and I've thought, my kids are very lucky, have a fantastic father. Not a perfect father, but a fantastic father, and who loves them dearly, and they will be well taken care of. They have a lot of loved ones in their life, so they're very lucky. I've thought about like different ways that I might die. Like, what if I got cancer? Or what if, died in a car accident? I've gamed all those scenarios out. It would eventually, I guess, end, and it would, be fine. But that one's, it's just not one that I major fear that I have. My own death is not a major fear. It's like my thoughts are, I've been dying since I was born, so it will happen. All right, so that was like a major one, and so one, death. That was my one fear, right? Broke it down a little bit, kids versus my own. Fear number 2 is being alone. So I don't know how or why this imprinted on me. I think it's probably, I'm not unique to it, based on the fact that everyone seems to couple off. But somewhere along the lines, I was told a story that everyone hopefully ends up with someone else, that you get paired off and you find the one, your Prince Charming. That fear, I did have. I this, especially after the divorce. Oh shit. When you don't have that emergency contact, when you freeze, when you're filling out the paperwork, you don't know who to add, who to put. Like, I don't know. Depends on the emergency. Here's a chart. So I did have this huge fear of being alone, not finding a soulmate. That one, I've tried to I guess that's what this year is about. This whole year of really not being in a relationship, a long-term relationship, of being by myself. Now, mind you, asterisk, being by myself does not mean celibate, so don't get confused. In my world, I'm talking about that emotional relationship, the everything, emotional, physical, that type of relationship. I just I haven't experienced it this year, so and I kind of made the deal with myself and my son for different reasons that I was just going to be on my own. The spirit of that has been all along. There was a month there that I took a U-turn for a little bit, but the spirit of it has been there from the beginning of the year. If you look at some of my, if you were to look at some of my online dating stuff, I think that's like the thing that I've put in it, in the profile. Not looking for a long-term relationship, which has made the the stock of people contacting me so interesting. That's for another podcast. So being alone. So in a way, I think this year has kind of helped me deal with this fear because I have been alone by choice, by my own design, and I've had a fucking great year. I mean, I really have. I mean, this might actually be the best year of my life. I mean, things just continuously happen for me. It feels like I've cultivated um, the life that I want. So, reconnecting with my family, investing the time in the friendships that I have, my relationship with my children, going back to school, the jobs, this podcast, even the love affairs that I've had this year, they've all been it's been a great year. And the thing about this particular fear about being alone, is I sort of walked it through the way my therapist may have walked it through with me if I had been sitting on the couch, which was like, first of all, a phrase that she would say is like, what's your data show? What's the data? What's the data of your life show on this? And in this instance, I looked, my mom's alone. My dad died alone. Like, when I say my dad died alone, he died alone. They did not find his body. He lived in New York by himself. Never remarried after my mother. Don't know if he ever had a relationship. I have no idea what my father did for companionship. My mother didn't have any companionship after my father. So I don't have a lot of data on being in a relationship or in a healthy relationship. So that's, okay. All right, Marisol, like you might, that was a signal for me of like, okay, you might want to work through this fear because you might end up alone. And I'm okay with that. I mean, it's not ideal. It's not what I want. But if I did, I feel like I have a really good life. And, I have a beloved cousin who, her and I have kind of like already made plans. We're going to move in together. And, you make the best of it. And the thing is, I'm okay being alone. I actually kind of like being by myself at times. I think it'd be really hard for me to share space. But the polarity to this is also, this doesn't mean I'm not lonely or that I haven't experienced the extreme desire to not be alone. But if that doesn't happen for me, I still have a fucking kick-ass life. And it's not going to be devoid of physical affection. It's not going to be devoid of love. It's not going to be devoid of companionship. So that's me walking through that fear. Like, all right, if you're alone, you're going to be okay. Might not be, choice A for me, but if the cards played, and that's hard. I wish I could edit this, but I don't know how. I don't have time to learn. But if that's the way it happens, if the life for me, I don't end up being partnered up and I end up being alone, fuck it. I will make the best of it. All right. How long have I been on this? Because I do have one more fear that I don't want to um, go on too long. I don't even know why I go to check this, because I can't tell. I need to get like someone to help me with this. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and finish it off. This fear is one I've been working on, actually, also in the last few years, and that's the fear of money. I have a huge, huge fear of money, specifically not having it. To say that I grew up poor, I would describe my childhood as working poor. My mother worked hard, office jobs, labor. She worked. I mean, she raised at least three, four with my brother, but she was married at that time. But three kids, a single mom since I was 7. So, so we didn't have a lot of money. But you can even go further than that. This is a theory I have. The theory is you go back even one more generation to my mother's generation. My mother's from Honduras, born in Honduras, and she's one of 12. So sit with that for a second. My mother is one of 12 children in Honduras. I have absolutely no idea what the financial situation was, but I can only imagine. I feel that I can make a healthy, or I could suggest that it wouldn't be an exaggeration that maybe money was tight or non-existent. I don't know. And I really don't know. I have no idea. But I feel that there might be this like primitive fear of resources that not only that I have, but maybe others in my family have. I don't know. This is a theory that I have. But that's just, I feel like it's always there in the back of my mind that, I don't know, like homelessness. Like I have this fear of just like, not having enough food or resources. Okay, so me walking through this one, the fear of money, this has been a fear that has actually affected me, actually affected the quality of my life because I had such an intense fear of it, and combined with I was never really taught how to manage money, but I knew I also wanted money. Like my whole focus as far as school when I was a kid was getting out. I wanted white suburban privilege. And you know what? I have it. And I am grateful for it. But it's a fear because of this fear. I want to talk a little bit about this one. I won't tear up because this one isn't as emotional as the other ones for me. But this fear of money, I literally like the way it affected me was A, being bad with money. B, the best way I can describe it is like hysterical blindness in when people would talk to me about money. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was going through my divorce, I had not one, not two, I think I had 3 really close friends review my financials, and sit down with me and try to explain, a budget and saving and all. I would just feel the anxiety and I would feel my throat constricting, and it's sort of like this white noise in my ears, and I hear what you're saying, but I don't really hear what you're saying. that one, but see, this fear I had to walk through. I had to walk through it because I had to fucking deal with it. I couldn't just do that anymore. I have 3 kids. I'm divorced. I don't foresee marrying again. I know you never know what happens in the future. And again, that doesn't mean I don't want to pair off with anyone, but I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see that in my future as something that I honestly, I don't even know if I want it. So in other words, I'm not going to find that security monetarily from a spouse. And not that I'm judging anyone who does or saying that people do. It's not something that I want to do right now. And so I had to fucking put my big girl panties on. And it's still a process. It's a practice. It's like everything in life. Anything that you want to, be better at, you've got to practice. And so I have to practice it. And I'm still learning. And, there's still months that I'm like, what the fuck? Where'd the money go? But I don't, a lot of the other issues I've had with money, those were some of them. Other issues I had was the sense of I wasn't, I always have to justify it. Like I always have to justify spending money on myself. Like I could spend money on my kids. I do spend way too much money on my children. Easily. It's something I have to actually probably work on. But for me to spend it on myself, and I do. I mean, I'm not claiming I don't, but now it's easier. But there was a time where I just kind of felt like I didn't deserve it. Wasn't worthy of, even like getting a pedicure or manicure would, I felt guilty about. That one, I still, there's like a twinge of it, but it's something I've definitely gotten better about. Security, that fear. So this whole fear. So again, I look at the data, I look at my life, and I'm like, okay. My mom, not knowing the language, not knowing, not having, I don't even know what level of education my mother had. I know she went to secretarial school at one point, but definitely no college education. I don't even know if there's a high school education there. From both my parents. I don't know. I don't think so. So if those two, if my father and my mother were both able with that, situation, they weren't homeless. They worked hard. They had families. They raised us. We had food on the table. If they could do it, I could do it. And I feel like I have done it. I've done it in the past. I say it often. I left 2 days after high school graduation and have basically been on my own since then. So I've done it and I'm doing it now. And, hopefully I will continue to have the health and brains to continue to do it. And, like when this job fell on my lap this week, it was just this moment of like just gratitude, just like, you know what, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to end up homeless in the streets. My kids aren't going to walk home and the electricity bill not be paid. Well, we're going to be okay. And I'm going to be okay. And I'm okay today. And I have to focus on today and not jump to the future and freak the fuck out and be paralyzed by fear. So, there you go. There's my podcast on fear. Hopefully you all have a wonderful week. Again, thank you for listening. you can find these podcasts on my website, which is www.shityoucan'tmakeup, you being just the letter.com. And I haven't updated the website. I haven't done anything with it. This is, again, just a labor of love for me. So, did I use that context right? I don't know. Just a creative outlet. I don't know what the fuck it is. Goodbye.